call it the Islamic bank, call it whatever you like. It's a bank based on the principles we've spoken about. You're the investors. Forget the concept of depositing. You no longer deposit money. You're investors. You're no longer risk averse. You sit down with Alex at the bank and you say, listen Alex, I've got 100,000 here. I'm doing well. What should I do with it? So Alex says, well, we've got different risk profiles here for your money. We've got negligible risk. We've got no risk. But no risk means no return for you, I'm afraid. We're just going to hold on to it for you. We've got little risk, which means it's highly unlikely you're going to lose your money because we're going to take your funds and invest them with a company that deals in scrap metal, which is highly predictable. So it becomes like an investment bank. Not an investment bank in the conventional sense, in the real sense. So here, the central fund accumulates, and then the bank looks for viable projects, some of which are risky, some of which aren't, and it basically binds all these businesses together to provide a diversified portfolio of risk so that your 100,000 is not just simply invested in some doctor's surgery somewhere, it's invested in a pharmacy, in a bespoke business idea, in a dental practice, in an optician centre. You can assess the risk of the return on those. And instead of your pathetic 1-2% that you would receive right now, you would negotiate with the bank. The bank would say, if you're willing to engage in further risk, you're entitled to further gain. So the bank is now managing money, it's not selling money. This is making sense? And this is pretty much what private equity should be, but it isn't, because private equity borrows, like I said before. There's no borrowing in this system.
Sorry, so the bank makes a profit by charging a fee for this?
Correct. So, on this side, it would agree with you, saying, you know what, you're prepared to invest in these businesses, we'll give you, I don't know, 20% of what we make. Yeah? And they give you a projection of what that is. On the business side of it, your business idea, instead of taking money from the bank, you're thinking, I'll part with a stake in my business for a fixed period of time. So the bank says, we want 25% of your business to provide you with the kind of funds that you want. And you say, well, I'm happy with 20 over a 5-year period, after which I can buy back my equity at market rate. Yeah? Now, how is this fair? Because if Osama falls on his backside, makes no money, does the bank make any money? The banker makes no money. If Osama makes money, does the bank make money? Does Osama make money? Of course he makes money, so both of them make money, right? And therefore the investors make money too. Relatively straightforward.
What if he makes a loss?
Sorry?
What if he makes a loss in his business?
Then the bank is unable to make a profit also. So if Osama fails, then the bank, the system as it is at the moment, the bank has its security and it is still owed its money. It is independent of the success or failure of the business itself. Under this system, if the individual makes a loss in the business, then the bank also has no claim to equity. Should we just hold off on... Sorry, I appreciate it. Just hold on to those questions. Yeah? Should we get to the end of this? Okay. Laissez-faire money. Okay. So one of the things we need to do is get back to basics with money. This is a quote by Imam Ghazali, who lived from 1058 to 1111. The creation of dirhams and dinars are a blessing from God, as they have no intrinsic usufruct or utility. But everybody needs them, as every human being needs commodities for eating, wearing, etc. Often man does not have what he needs, or he has what he does not need. Therefore transactions of exchange are inevitable. But there must be a basis of measure on which price can be determined, as the exchanged commodities are neither of the same type nor of the same size. Therefore, all these commodities need a mediator to judge their exact value, hence God has created dirhams and dinars. Laissez-faire money, let it be. Let money be what it was meant to be. Okay, back to where we started in the final slide. So based upon what we've just spoken about, what is the definition of the credit crunch? That's what we started with, right? How about this? The exposure of inherent weaknesses in interest-bearing laissez-faire capitalism through incoherent and self-serving actions of supposedly qualified bankers put in charge of the world's capital resources. I think that probably sums up what we've spoken about today. I thank you for listening. I apologise for going over on this. I hope it was relevant, and we can take some questions. Oh yes, there are some booklets that I was holding up earlier. The reason why these weren't handed out is because they were written a while back, and they're quite, they need a bit of rewriting, to be honest, but it's still useful. So please do take a copy before we go. Yes, Wells?
Yeah, sir, could you clarify your proposed way that money would actually come into creation? In that you said it's government issued asset backed. So maybe you could go into a little bit more detail.
Well, if we consider that, if we consider that the two central problems is money creation, i.e., fractional reserve banking, money not being asset backed, and then the actual interest paid off the back of it, what that tends to facilitate is a large amount of cash coming into the economy, which then facilitates a faster pace of growth. Yeah? So if we cut back on fractional reserve and say only asset-backed money should enter into society, that would mean less money would be entering into the economic system, but the flip side of that being that it would be more sustainable. The way in which that money would be created is that governments would be responsible for issuing those funds off the back of infrastructure that is national infrastructure. So it is opposed to fundamental free market principles, in that not everything is up for grabs. Yeah, for example, the motorway system in this country, or the electrics, or the internet, etc. The infrastructure as such, and this would be agreed. I'm not sure by whom, but it probably would be something constitutional that could not be privatised. And hence, off the back of this increase in government spend on the creation of this infrastructure, you then have assets upon which to then issue money against. So it actually would have a real value. Yes, Will?
As a follow-up, but if the government has to tax people in order to, like right now, the government has to tax people in order to build those projects, right? And so they take money from people to do that. So if they're creating money by building the projects, how do those two ideas go together? Doesn't the government have to take from people in order to build projects in the first place?
Yeah, you're probably right. If we consider that banking itself is 400 years old, successful alternative models, you can't really see them, can you? You've got communism, which tried its best, but it's just based on completely different fundamentals to capitalism. Anything that's alternative to that would require an extensive amount of research, which is a long way around your question, and really a way of saying, I don't know. It's an idea. What we try and do as an organisation is promote certain principles. We hopefully will promote principles which you can take away with you and then formulate as you grow within your own industries. Or then you join organisations that are geared towards the development of these things. For example, like the corporate structure, what it was when it first began and what it is now are two very different bodies. These things are organic, but we always start off with the principles which we believe to be absolute.
So you presented an alternative investment wealth creation approach, which is equity-based investment.
Yeah.
So how is that equity-based investment different from the investment that currently happens in this system, where you buy shares and you buy, you take part ownership in the limited liability company?
It's simply the role that big finance, the money men, play in organisations. So any market-listed investment that you look to make is hugely affected by the debt that they have on their books and the interest payments that they have. A purer form of that is not to have that debt on the books in the first place. Yeah? So you'd simply have equity in a real money in these organisations, not debt money which is there to inflate. Because the example I gave you earlier about the way private equity tends to work and the way our private equity works, I'll give you, again, two examples. private equity will look to leverage